What's going on? TK Pride coming at you. Today I just wanted to hit you guys with the financial IQ class or raise your IQ type video because, a long time ago I attempted to present a gold class. It went on for about a year. And in this class, we tried to raise the IQ of people to show them that they had options and that when it comes to financial management, you have the opportunity to choose which form of currency that you want to use in exchange for the goods and services you want to buy. So this is a relic left over from that time period. This is a board that I used to use in the class, and it's pretty interesting to see it today because excuse me, it seems like no matter what you present to people, they don't necessarily care. You present ice water to someone who is in the desert and they say, I want soda. So it's a little bit frustrating to make an attempt to do anything positive in this world because people are programmed to fail and they're only interested in things that are negative that do not aid them in their success process. So if you jump on the education bandwagon or you jump on the information bandwagon where you're trying to present something alternative to debt-based instruments, people say, well, the only thing I want is debt-based promissory notes. So I want to give you guys a few examples. This is a government promissory note. It's a Federal Reserve note that's fully accepted as legal tender from a private institution that's not anything associated with the government other than the contract to print debt notes. So every time one of these notes are printed, it comes with interest, which means there's debt associated with every single print. But this is all people want. They don't want real money, which according to the Constitution is gold and silver. So people are not interested in acquiring gold or silver. That's not a part of their thought process. That's not something that they want to hear because they feel like a debt instrument can be exchanged easily, whereas real money has to be negotiated. If you want to exchange this for anything, you have to negotiate with the other party and work out a method in which they accept real money for the item that you're trying to purchase. So people aren't willing to do that. They just want debt notes. But according to the Constitution, gold and silver is the only thing that's considered money. And then in the 21st century, we also have the advent of Bitcoin, which is an electronic form of sound money. And people just are not willing to deal in gold, silver, and Bitcoin because they don't have the financial IQ or the historic reference to know that this asset class is worth more than a debt note printed on a promissory note or a promissory claim. So people ignore paper versions of gold and silver, which is an item like this, where the blue seal lets you know that this is a silver certificate, which means this piece of paper is a claim check for this precious metal. So any given time, you can go to a bullion dealer and express interest in acquiring claim notes that are in paper format. So people refuse to get gold and silver certificates because they prefer to have private debt instruments. So the difference between these two is that one is a private debt instrument, whereas the other one is a certificate in exchange for silver. So if you explain to someone the difference between a debt note and a silver certificate or a gold certificate, they say they're not interested in anything but the debt note. And that's interesting that you cannot give gold and silver to anyone, but you can easily give someone a government promissory note that comes with interest and that falls victim to inflation and taxation. So you're not interested in going to a bullion dealer to get gold and silver certificates. You're only interested in going to a financial institution and getting debt notes. But there's a difference between this promissory note and this silver certificate. And that's something that people don't have the education level to understand, nor do they care to educate themselves on how the silver certificate can benefit you better than this debt note in the long term. So debt note, silver certificate, physical gold and silver, actual Bitcoin, those are the items that you can't seem to convince the average person to exchange this for one of these. They feel like this is worthless. They feel like a representation of that in a certificate is worthless. And this, which actually has no worth, is the only thing that people want. So it's kind of hard to have a class. It's kind of hard to educate people or even have information presented to someone when they negate that opportunity as soon as you open your mouth. So it's interesting to me that people just aren't willing and they're not interested. No matter what you say, no matter what you do. You know, I got to the point where I stopped teaching the class because I was frustrated with the level of ignorance that people show when they come to the class. So then I take it to the next level and I diversify in terms of asset holdings, because this is gold, 1 gram assayed in a credit card, simply because people recognize credit cards. It's easy to put it in your wallet. It's easy to transmit or transport. And this is the same thing, assayed in plastic. Now, this plastic is different from this plastic, but they're both assayed in plastic. So this one costs a little bit less because of the production that went into putting the gold into this plastic. But it's the same gold that's in 2 different assay formats. So people say that, well, the one that's in the fancy credit card looking assay is overpriced because the production that went into it and the company behind it wants to make a profit. Well, this company wants to make a profit also. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in business. But it's just a different type of assay. It's a different type of packaging. Both companies sell the same thing. They both sell gold. So if you feel like this company with its unique packaging is overpriced and they're making too much of a profit, then you can get the typical plastic packaging and still acquire the same asset. So if you step into more diversification, you can get into a different type of assay. Like I showed you the silver certificate, which is a claim receipt for physical silver, right? Then you get into this type of essay from the same company. Now, someone took the time to say that, oh, good, you spent $100 to buy $50 worth of gold. Well, every type of asset that's sold in retail is done for a profit. So the Jordans that you put on your feet and spend $200 on don't cost $200 to produce. The company that sold you those shoes are in business to make a profit. So every retail item on the planet is sold for more than what it costs to produce. So if it costs $100 to buy $50 in gold, then the company is making a profit for a unique type of assay in gold being packaged in a different format. So I don't blame the company for charging whatever they charge in order to get this type of gold, because it's unique and it's packaged differently. So if you spend $100 to buy this type of gold packaging or this type of gold assay, then you're just diversifying in a different way, and you're realizing that gold is still gold and the company is just trying to make a profit. So you could say that this packaging is overpriced and that it's not worth one of these debt notes. But you could also look at it as you are just expanding beyond paper promissory debt notes and converting debt notes into actual assets, converting debt notes into actual assets that appreciate in value over time. So even if you go to a bank or to a bullion dealer and you ask to acquire a silver certificate or a gold certificate, you're going to pay more in debt notes than the face value of the silver certificate or the gold certificate, because the company is going to sell it to make a profit. So even though this is a silver certificate, you're going to pay more to acquire it than the face value of the certificate, because it's actual claim check to redeem silver. So that's something that you have to understand about companies, about business. They're going to sell you whatever it is that they're selling you, and they're going to do it at a cost higher than what it took for them to produce that item. Anything in retail is going to be sold for more than what it costs to produce. So that's something that you have to accept when it comes to various types of assets. But it makes sense to acquire assets because you want to set yourself up for a future that is not solely based in debt notes. Debt notes are negative liabilities that will lead to demise because there's no form of paper throughout the history of paper that's lasted forever. Every debt note, paper, promise has always reached its intrinsic value, which is zero. So in the future, governmental promissory notes will meet the same demise. So there's a lot of different plastic assays that you can get your physical gold in. And the company behind the gold is going to spend different amounts to package in different formats. But you have a choice. You can basically go with whichever you feel most comfortable with, as long as you are acquiring gold and taking the time to position yourself outside of promissory debt notes. So all of these are different from this, but the goal is all the same. And that's the part that I can't seem to get others to understand nor accept. The only thing you want is paper. The only thing that you're told that money is a promissory note. And the only thing that people are willing to pay attention to is that debt note. But there's all different types of physical metals that you can get your hands on and be able to diversify outside of paper so that your assets are not locked into something that eventually will go to zero. So you need to understand the difference and get to the point where you are saving your family, saving your future, and doing something financially smart so that you can get ahead of the game. Because I think what's going to happen is that people are going to wake up to a world where paper is not as valuable as it currently is, say a Venezuela, a Zimbabwe, or a Cyprus. And when that happens, it's going to be too late to try to start accumulating silver certificates, gold certificates, or anything of real value that can allow you to diversify. So the idea is to get you guys to make different decisions. The idea is to show you that you have options. The idea is to somehow get you to understand that paper in its current format being pushed to the public is actually a debt note, and that debt note doesn't have any intrinsic value behind it. So you want to acquire something that's going to appreciate. You want to focus on converting debt notes into that appreciating asset. You want to also acquire gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Can't really see that. You want to diversify your portfolio so that you're being paid passively on a continuous basis in assets that are physical in nature, digital in nature, and outside of the traditional banking system or outside of the traditional fiat monetary system. And that's what this represents. It represents a tangible asset that's not tied to the fractional reserve banking system. And that's what the gold and silver and Bitcoin that I receive on a continuous basis represents. It represents me having a passive residual income that is outside of the traditional system that everybody else accepts. So me explaining this to you in a video may not grade your attention or may not make you make different decisions, but I present the information in hopes that somebody wakes the hell up and understands the difference between a debt-based promissory note from a private corporation that has nothing to do with the government and a physical item that appreciates in time. I've said it 1,000 times that paper goes down in value, gold, silver, and Bitcoin over the long term goes up in value. So understand that, make some different decisions for your family, better position your future. If you focus on appreciating assets, you're setting yourself up for success. If you keep chasing negative liabilities, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot and setting yourself up for failure.